Good morning and welcome to Big Bets on Campus Live. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern on Saturday. I'm Stuckey, and joining me today, my fellow BBOC co-hosts, Mike Calabrese and Greg Waddell. We'll get to our best bets for both Saturday and Sunday. We'll talk about our favorite potential money line underdogs, and then we will get out of here. Nice, quick, efficient show. Before we dive into today's slate, I want to get your guys' quick reactions to the tournament so far. You can go anywhere you want with it. I mean, it's obviously been quite boring from a results standpoint. Uh, Sorry, Greg. I wish that your Michigan Wolverines would have lost for UC San Diego. That could have been an electric team. Like there's been no team, no mid major that everyone has fallen in love with. So yeah, it's been very chalky so far. Zero, 13 through 16 seeds advanced to the second round. Additionally, it's the first time ever since the NCAA has started allowing multiple teams from the same conference that the ACC will not have multiple teams in the second round. And then obviously the Big Ten has been dominant, 8-0 straight up and against the spread. That is the best start, minimum 8 games in the history of the tournament from a betting perspective. Greg, I'll start with you. Any key takeaways, or are you just hopeful for the tourney moving forward?
Yeah, I think the fan in me is hoping for a little more madness, right? This tournament is great no matter what happens in it, but it was a little bit of a snooze fest when you get to Friday night and you're just waiting for something chaotic to happen and you look up and all four games are blowouts. That's where you feel the sting a little bit. But also, I do think we can explain this away as a good embodiment of what the season has been. I know we talked previously about most of the small conferences put in the best team in their conference this year. That's true, and I don't think that these results minimize that we got a lot of good mid majors in the field, but it's also been a top heavy year in college basketball, and I think the best of the best have been living up to that so far. You mentioned the Big Ten's record; that conference was a gauntlet this year. You mentioned the ACC's record. Even the ACC is doing what they do best, embarrassing themselves on a dramatic stage. The one seeds looked great for the large part. There's probably some questions with Auburn here, but I mean, Duke and Houston looked completely dominant. Florida looked great, jumped all over them early. So, I think it makes sense 2 days into this that we really haven't had a lot of chaos. Maybe that comes this round in the round of 32. Maybe that comes in the Sweet 16. I don't know. But I think as much as the first 2 days maybe left some on the table for us, it's going to be really fun if we get to a Sweet 16 with 15 of the 16 best teams in the country. And I'm kind of looking forward to that.
Yeah, we have some potential really good matchups down the line. Although we said that last year and it didn't play out as the most entertaining tournament, but I have some hope moving forward. And yeah, what could this have looked like if there was actually some upsets in the conference tournaments? But I do think, in this new college basketball landscape, the gap is growing between the top and the bottom. But I do think that there's also going to be more parity between, those top 10 to 20 teams. So this is what the tournament might look like moving forward with a chalkier first round and then, more competitive second, third rounds, etc. Calabrese, any key takeaways for you?
I think we have to give some credit out to the Mountain West. We're always waiting for the Mountain West to just, pee down their leg and not send anybody to the round of 32. We got two teams. Colorado State continues to be hot. They could be a problem moving forward in this tournament. And then New Mexico, everything came together for a team that has really struggled in March Madness, shown a lot of potential in previous years and flamed out early. So if either of those teams can go to the second weekend, I think that speaks highly of the mid-major ranks, trying to pull any positivity there. And Drake as well. Drake has to play a very particular brand of basketball, but they did it against Mizzou. They're able to impose their preferred tempo. And I think the nation is being introduced to Ben McCollum as one of the best coaches out there, which is fantastic. I love those stories. I love people that cut their teeth at the Division II, NAIA levels, wherever it is in lower basketball, when you're a really great tactician, particularly in this era of how good are you with the boosters? how much money can you get in an NIL war chest, and then you just go and put the roster together free agency style. When there's someone who's actually gutting out wins and showing strategically what he can do when they play up, I think that was a cool element and a cool story to follow. But I echo your overall thoughts, which is there's potential now for these to be colossal matchups, even starting today. The Zags game against Houston is exactly what we want at this point in the tournament. We want to see best versus best, and I think we have an opportunity to do that moving forward.
Spin zone, it had nothing to do with New Mexico and Colorado State, and it was just Shaka and Penny in the tournament. But yeah, today and tomorrow, like today in particular, has the potential to be really good. But this is where TV and the ratings can ruin kind of the flow of games. Like tomorrow, they want to put Duke and Florida on island games. They're double-digit favorites. Like we haven't had that much drama. Now we could have 5 hours of blowouts. And then today, really need we got to avoid the Saturday lull after these past 2 days. We really need St. John's and versus Arkansas and/or McNeese Purdue to be competitive and hopefully dramatic at the end. But let's get into today's slate and talk our best bets. Calabrese, I'll start with you.
So I'm just going to run it back from the first round. I went under on Graham Ike points. It was 16.5 against Georgia. And the handicap there was simple. Georgia defended the post at a top 10 level. They had athletic bigs to throw at him. He ends up scoring 13 points. It really wasn't much of a risk because he's done what he's essentially done for the last 5 games, which is he got in foul trouble. He can't help himself. He doesn't have great lateral quickness. He, will reach. He'll, body people when they go up for layups on the interior. And because of that, in his last 8 or 9 games, he has had an average of 23 minutes on the floor. And I think that's the issue here in this game against Houston, another team that has a bunch of athletic bigs. They're awesome on the offensive glass. So there's plenty of opportunities for the whistle to go against Ike. Houston's also top 20 in defense from the post and defense at the rim. So essentially, Ike wants to eat there. He averages nearly 6 points per game out of the post, which is second nationally, another strength on strength matchup. I just see this as, the Zags needing to win in other ways, namely on the perimeter. And I'll get into a full breakdown of this game soon. But I think Ike, even at 15.5 points for a 17 point per game scorer throughout the season, most of that was him absolutely dominating the WCC, smaller bigs getting their best player in their front court in foul trouble. Houston has no problem. That is where their strength lies defensively. So I think this number is still good. I'd play it down to 15.
As you alluded to, we will have a little bit more in this game later on. So, Greg, I'll throw it to you. What are you looking at for today?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the well. Hopefully one more time and not one last time, gentlemen. I sing the praises of the BYU Cougars every single week on this program whenever you give me the platform to do so. So this is a legacy opportunity for me and my Cougars today against Wisconsin. Both these teams are offensively phenomenal. This could be a highly entertaining game. I think it goes one of two ways. I think either Wisconsin really hits their rhythm offensively, and this is a huge total game, maybe both teams in the 80s and the 90s even, or Wisconsin struggles, John Tonje against some bigger wings and the internal bigs of BYU maybe cause some problems. We've seen that happen to him in recent weeks. They go cold and BYU's offense rolls in this one. I think there's a really good chance that happens because I can't see how Wisconsin frustrates this BYU offense. You go through BYU's last 2 months, the only games where they've hit even a minor hiccup offensively have been against teams that are really aggressive, really physical, can force some turnovers, high pressure. That's not Wisconsin. They're an extremely conservative defense. They sort of just sit back and try to use their size down low to frustrate teams. That's not going to happen against BYU. If you let BYU be comfortable offensively, they have too much shooting. They have Richie Saunders who can take guys off the dribble and make plays. They get to the free throw line. I just think this is the type of matchup that BYU is really happy to see at this point in this tournament. And then you factor in the fact that this is the second game in 3 days for both of these teams at altitude. BYU is a team that has to deal with this all the time. Wisconsin is not. Wisconsin did make a run to the Big Ten tournament a little bit ago. I think, Calabrese, you had a number on this. What is this, the first time in program history that they played this many games?
6 games in 9 days for the first time in program history at altitude. You would think at some point this would matter.
At some point, I'm willing to bet that point is today. I'll take BYU on the money line. Basically a pick 'em. Can't add it to my card quick enough.
Yeah, I'm on BYU as well. I think it's 6 and 10. Isn't it 6 and 10 days? 4 and 4, 5, 6. I don't know. I can't count. I agree there. I think that actually could be a major issue with the quick turnaround in altitude after 4 and 4 last weekend. And especially because against the BYU defense, they're going to encourage you to shoot a lot of threes. Wisconsin will happily oblige. Do the legs go in the second half? And I do think it's a good matchup for the BYU offense. Should be a lot of fireworks in that one and a highly entertaining watch. I'm going to go with, I considered A&M. I can, you already took BYU, considered UCLA under, but and or UCLA, but I'm going to go with Auburn. I just think this is a great matchup. They have looked off for the past couple weeks. Have they just been coasting? Are there some underlying issues? I don't know. It's a bit of a risk in that department, but if you're going to be locked in, if they're ever going to be locked in, we'll see it today. And just both ends of the floor, if you look, I mean, Auburn has many different guys who can just feast upon the cock drop. And on the other side of the floor, Creighton doesn't do the things well that really hurt Auburn. One of the reasons why Texas A&M is a good matchup for Auburn is because they offensive rebound and they get to the line a ton. Well, Creighton doesn't do either. And if most teams don't have someone who can match up with Kalkbrenner. We saw Louisville try to double him. Questionable game plan there. But the bigs in this game can pretty much neutralize each other. And then it's just a bloodbath in favor of Auburn on the perimeter. So I think if they are locked in, this is a great matchup. So I'm going to buy the dip on the Tigers after, a few weeks of lackluster effort. So War Eagle. All right, let's move on to our favorite underdog money lines. But before we get to that, quick ad read here. March is the best month of the year, not just for sports, but also for getting the best deal on Action Pro. You can get Action Pro for just over $5 a month for the entire year. And for the NCAA tournament, you'll get Sean Kerner's bracket simulations, Nick Giffin's player props, and if you care, my picks 30 minutes before they go out to everyone else. Go to actionnetwork.com/March now to get on board. That's actionnetwork.com/March. All right, let's go to our favorite underdog money lines of the weekend. You can go Saturday or Sunday. Mike, you alluded to where you were going earlier. You're going back to the Gonzaga-Houston game.
Yeah, I'm going to go GU here at plus 185. As soon as the bracket came out, everyone pointed to this being a potential stumbling block for Houston. And a big part of it is the emergence of Khalif Battle. We saw it earlier in the season. You figured he would be a big shot in the arm, either coming off the bench or grabbing starts in certain situations. And he has been that in the past 6 weeks. He's had 21 or more 4 times in that stretch. And with him burying threes, all of the spacing, all of the danger for an opposing defense, it gets ratcheted up because not only is he making shots, but then Nolan Hickman has open looks. They're able to go into the post without people doubling quite as easily. And really, we were just kind of waiting because all the statistical analysis, the major Ken Palms, Torviks, Mias of the world were saying, this is an elite team. This is an elite team. Well, we needed to see it against teams outside of the WCC, or at the very least, the very top. You look at their last 2 games. St. Mary's, they're able to dominate that game. Then against Georgia, they win going away as well. So I think everything is, peaking at the right time for the Zags. And then when I look over at this Houston team, I understand that Kelvin Sampson is an elite coach, but I don't necessarily view him as someone I'm absolutely terrified, a stay away, never fade in the NCAA tournament. Because he's been an elite regular season coach, they've had so many opportunities to be a top seed, yet he's advanced past the Sweet 16 twice in 11 years in H-Town. So I think this is an opportunity to grab the Zags team that is living up fully to its potential. And offensively, I'm still wondering if anything like the bottom's going to fall out in tournament time as it has in years past for the Cougars. Keep in mind, a Baylor team that at least offensively profiles a little bit closer to the Zags, nearly beat Houston in a recent game. So I think at plus 185, anything north of plus 170, there's the value there. I wouldn't be shocked to see them advance and make, I believe, Mark Few's 10th straight Sweet 16. So I have an elite coach of my own.
Yeah, they're going to have to make outside shots, and they couldn't for about a month leading up to the tournament. Maybe that has turned. They went 12 of 20 from 3 against Georgia. Now, obviously, seeing the Nets well here in a tournament where no one can make a 3. Some rumblings out there about the balls. I think scoring is down like 2 to 3 points compared to expectation. So Gonzaga, one of the teams that obviously is seeing it well. They're going to have to make some perimeter shots in this one, and if they do, they'll definitely have a shot. Greg, what are you saying?
I'm going to stay in the West Coast Conference here and take St. Mary's to beat Alabama, plus 190 here. This is a Sunday game, so apologies that I'm giving out one couple days in advance, but I think it's my favorite play on the card for the round of 32. You mentioned the shooting across the board has been strange this tournament. It has been a theme in recent years where the balls are just overinflated. That impacts teams that do what Alabama does, and I thought they looked very frustrated in round one. This was not a game against Robert Morris where give Robert Morris credit for just showing up and being up for the challenge, but that was not a case of Robert Morris like shooting the lights out and having a chance to steal that game. Robert Morris shot 26% from three in that game and looked up and was tied with Alabama with 7 minutes to play. I don't think this Crimson Tide team looks right. Obviously, Grant Nelson's injury is hanging over this group. They end up bringing him in with 7 minutes left to try to save the game. And look, he contributed. Give him credit. Maybe he starts. My expectation is he will. But the fact that he didn't start in game one of this tournament tells me that he's not 100%. I was really unimpressed with the Alabama role players. LeBaron Philon was pretty messy as far as his own offense. He did have 8 assists, but they need some scoring punch from other guys that are not Mark Sears. And St. Mary's stylistically is going to frustrate Alabama. We know this. They're going to slow this down, control the entire rhythm of this game, similar to what they did to Gonzaga in multiple wins this year. And they're a great 3-point defense. Like if you're looking for a team that profiles as a team that can just give Alabama fits, it's the team that limits attempts. They're 11th in the country in preventing 3-point attempts. And then teams don't make their threes either against St. Mary's. So it's worth the shot, nearly 2-1. I think St. Mary's is going to really frustrate Nate Oates' team here.
Yeah, St. Mary's could do some of the things just better that Robert Morris did. Like Robert Morris good on the offensive glass. Robert Morris good at limiting 3-point attempts because they have good rim protection. And St. Mary's is just gonna just grind this game down to a halt and make Alabama uncomfortable. Fascinating pace clash in this one. One of the fastest teams in the country versus one of the slowest. A pretty funny matchup, but yeah, taking the points I think is the way to go. I'm gonna go with the first game coming up here in about hour and a half. I'm going to go with McNeese State against Purdue. I think that Purdue is going to need its role players to show up here. This is the complete polar opposite matchup compared to High Point, where, against High Point, Braden Smith, TKR, they could do their thing. Not going to be able to do that here against McNeese State. They're going to need their role players to hit threes. They're going to get a ton of looks from the outside. Do you trust the Purdue role players to do so? I don't know. They've been very hit or miss. And also, this is a team that does not shoot anywhere close to what they do at home. I think they're 6% lower away from home from three. So if those shots aren't falling and you can take away the strength of that Purdue team, I think this game's going to go down to the wire. McNeese State wants to relentlessly attack the rim. I think they're top 5 near proximity attempt rate. Well, that Purdue definitely has issues there. I think McNeese State can do some work on the offensive glass. So unless, you need like a big lawyer game here, you need some of their role players to hit some threes. I don't fully trust them. Curious to also see what kind of tricks Will Wade has up his sleeve after that first game. I think that this game will be close. Greg, I know you're in tune with the Big Ten. Do you have any thoughts here?
No, I completely agree. It's going to come down to the Purdue role players. And if Fletcher Lawyer is one of the guys you're depending on too, he looks banged up to me. He had the elbow injury in the Big Ten tournament and just was a shell of himself against High Point. So I think your angle is correct here. The one concern I have with just outright backing McNeese today is I almost wonder if Will Wade seriously wants to coach another week here. And I know that sounds crazy. I liked it motivationally from McNeese in the first game because a lot of these guys are either going to go with him and or are ending their college careers. Of course, the players want to win. But I don't know. My read on Wade here is he got the one he wanted. He took his little victory lap at the podium, and now you might be ready to go start your career at NC
What do you think
State.
he's going to do? Not the coach? This start is
No,
not starter?
it's one of those things that hangs over. I know it sounds stupid, but the vibes I got from Will Wade and everyone involved was our job is done. after
I'm
the
glad
first
that
game.
you said vibes because we're talking about Amir or a Khan. He's not going to look him in the eye and be like, it's time to mail it in, right? He's going to blast that Buffalo Wild Wings boombox and they're going to come out with their hair on fire and at least give it their best shot in the first
They're
half.
also playing. They're playing with house money here, so they can play a lot looser. It could work into their advantage, but it's definitely worth mentioning. And by the way, back to the inflated balls. Texas A&M, Michigan today. If there's one team that benefits from inflated balls more than any other team in the country, it's Texas A&M. A team that can't shoot and encourages you to shoot threes and just wants to get rebounds. So I say inflate those balls a bit more. All right, let's move on to Sunday. Give our favorite bets for tomorrow's slate. Calabrese, where you going?
We talked about Baylor, Mississippi State on the preview show for the round of 64 and how both teams, I mean, Mississippi State was 2-5 down the stretch coming in. And Baylor's issue is that they're one of the worst teams in this field in terms of, when they have to play better competition, they just absolutely fold. So I wanted to wait and hope that they would make it through to play this Duke team. I think Duke's going to nuke them in this game, to be totally honest. I think their defense is going to be able to challenge what Baylor does best. They have much better depth, and they proved that with Flag out for a stretch during the ACC tournament. And I also look at Norchad Omir because he's been playing really well, but he's been doing so while still racking up 4 and 5 fouls per game. In 9 of his last 12 games, he's had at least 4 fouls. And if he leaves the floor or if he fouls out early, they have to go to either a freshman big or Josh Ojan Owunu, who hasn't seen meaningful minutes for much of this season. So I think that's going to be the issue here, the front court depth for Baylor. And I think Duke just stylistically, you look at their passion. I think they're trying to make a statement now and they're trying to build momentum. And I think 11.5 is just not going to cut it. I think they win this one by closer to 20.
By the way, if you wanted to follow along with our money line underdog picks, if you wanted to throw them in a parlay, I think it pays out close to 25 to 1. We'll drop a quick slip in the chat. And if you're watching, hit that subscribe and like button. Appreciate all of you. Greg, what are you looking at for Sunday?
I'm gonna jump on Ole Miss plus 5.5 against Iowa State for a few similar reasons to why I like Bama as a fade here. This is not a healthy Iowa State team. Keyshawn Gilbert, without him, they're just not the team everybody wanted them to be at the beginning of the season. And I think that is still kind of overinflating them in the market and in everybody's belief systems and brackets. Like we all wanted Iowa State to be really good and healthy and bring all these pieces back and basically be Houston. They weren't, they aren't. And I think we need to be honest about that here. Going back to January 16th, this Cyclones team has 2 wins against NCAA tournament teams in the field. One of them is the Lipscomb team they just beat in round 1. They've played a bunch of these games. They haven't beaten anybody since the injury problems have just derailed this entire season. I think that matters here. And I liked what I saw from Ole Miss in the first half against North Carolina. Now, obviously, they melted down late. Carolina had a chance to steal that game. But I think profile-wise here, Ole Miss never turns it over. Third nationally. They're not going to struggle with Iowa State's physical pressure, forcing turnover defense. And just to throw this out there, Otz is a great coach. I like him. In the NCAA tournament, some of his losses have come in games they're supposed to win. He lost to an 11 seed, lost to a 10 seed. Last year, they lost to Illinois, who was the 3 seed when Iowa State was the 2. Chris Beard, he's been pretty good as an underdog in this tournament. He has 5 wins outright as a sizable seed line underdog in his NCAA tournament career. I will back Beard, who I think is the better postseason coach with the healthier team in a matchup I really like.
Looking forward to that one. A lot of great games this weekend. For Sunday, don't love anything. I haven't dove all the way in yet to all the games. I will say I'm going to go with St. Mary's. Talked about that game earlier. I think they can just slow it down, keep them out of transition, limit their three-point attempts, and then live on the offensive glass, which is what they ultimately want to do. I also will say I think Kentucky might be in trouble unless Illinois just shoots 18% from 3, which is probably likely for Illinois after they shot 40% from 3. But Kentucky's pick and roll defense is very suspect. That's troubling against Illinois. But if Illinois is missing a ton of shots, chucking them up, then Kentucky can get out in transition. So if Illinois is on or just hits 33% from 3, which is when they're basically unstoppable. If they hit 40% again, I think it's a runaway. But that's a fascinating game. That should be an entertaining game. What's that total at now? Does anyone have their odds stream out? Where did I see it at? I swear I saw a 171, I think. So that should tell you all you need to know about that one.
170 right now out in the market. I think that's going to steam up, so you might want to grab that now.
Yeah, well, concerns about shooting, maybe not, but that should just be lots of fireworks throughout. All right, that'll do it for us. Let's get some drama. Let's get some madness today. Starting right off with the first game. We do have some great matchups, and then looking forward to the Sweet 16. Man, we're going to have some more great matchups. So that is the benefit of the lack of madness over the first 2 days. But thank you to Greg and Mike for joining me. Thanks to our producer, Gif, on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Big Bets on Campus podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll have stuff out all week. Make sure that you subscribe, unsubscribe, subscribe there. Thanks for tuning in. Check out the Action Network app for all of our picks. Good luck on all of your wagers. Enjoy the games. We'll see you next week. Cheers.